My name is Yedaliz Ruiz. I have many fond memories of the Hartford Public Library, and they date back to 1985. That's when I was a very small child and didn't speak English. My family traveled back and forth from Puerto Rico until we settled here when I was in middle school, about 12 years old. And my aunt lived in the projects just around the back of the Hartford Public Library. She would walk with me to the library and we would go to the children's section, and there was a librarian. I wish I remember her name, but I do remember her face, and I would spend hours there. She started to talk to me in English, and I started to practice, and I think that's when I truly fell in love with books. A memory of a favorite book, there's this one book that was called Harry y el terrible quién sabe qué. The translation of it, I think, is Harry and the big who knows what. It was a children's book, and it was about a big monster, and the little kid was afraid of the monster, but it was his process of minimizing the monster so that he would no longer be afraid of it. Obviously, that's a metaphor that I have taken the rest of my life. I don't know if it was a librarian or a teacher, but she read it in Spanish. And my teacher, for my 6th birthday, bought it for me, and she has a message in it. And that book, I was first exposed to it in the library. And so it was a really special thing that my teacher then bought it for me. I grew up in Hartford. I always say it that way because my family moved around the city often. We lived in one of my aunt's apartment, and we stayed in the basement for several months until we were able to get on our feet. And my aunt was a really special woman. She was like central station for that project. So a lot of the other kids came in, and so I was exposed to different families. I always say that I have reverence for libraries, and that came from my exposure to the Hartford Public Library. It was safe for me. It was the safe space. It was open to everyone, and that, to me, in retrospect, I think that made me feel safe because everyone was welcome. It's this beautiful, amazing place with so many books and so many resources. It's education for everyone, right? I am all about access and equity now. That's what my work is centered on, and the library is essentially that. It's a place that people don't need to feel that they have a barrier to accessing and holding a book and experiencing information. And that's what I know I experienced. I lived in different places in the city. So at an early age, my mom taught me how to ride the bus downtown. So wherever I was, downtown was my stop. I always ended up at the library. I knew people and I had books. You know, we didn't have a lot of resources, and I had access to CDs, tapes. I remember at the time when you walked in, the first room to the right where you could go in and explore music, the librarian in that area was like, "Oh, you're interested in music?" She's like, "Well, here you have access to world music." And at the time I was really into reggae, and she was like, "Well, let me show you." She's like, "So now you get to find out about the region, find out about the space." And my mind had a place to expand. I was really interested in education from the perspective of fighting for education or for opportunity or for the right to access education. Hartford was tough for a teenager during that time, and I had so much aspiration. I know it because my friends and we found a lot of opportunities in the city, like the Hartford Public Library. There were so many opportunities, and one counselor, it was like junior year, I was like, I really want to go to college. And given we didn't have a lot of access to quality education, and math and sciences were tough on us, but she just said, you know, I don't think college is for you. Just focus on graduating and getting a job. That's what happened to me when I was a junior. I was just like, what? Except that I have access to information. I have access to people that want me to learn. I found people that were excited about learning. And I know that's what made me be interested in education, but education from a critical perspective, community-based education, community and their experiences on access to education. Not so long after I graduated high school, I didn't go to college right away. And I would say that I attribute that to the negative messaging that I was receiving. But I found an incredible job at the Hispanic Health Council. There I started to work with youth in prevention education, and I started to see my interest in this activism, community-based work. And I was working on a lot of grants so that I can fund the programs. So I learned how to write grants. I went to a workshop on how to write grants at the library, and it was free. And I was a young professional, and yet again, open arms. So I wrote a grant, and I was able to get the author Esmeralda Santiago to come to the Hartford Public Library. I partnered with, I think it was the Girl Scouts, and we were able to bring a group of girls to meet her. And she came, and they prepared this beautiful room, and the feeling of the library with all the books, and it's just so cozy, and it's 6:30 or 7, and it's winter, and it's dark. And it was her reading from her book When I Was Puerto Rican. And it was an incredible experience for me. Like, here I was, a Hartford young person, organizing and being there with this incredible author who is also Puerto Rican, who has an incredible story as well of access and her transiency from Puerto Rico to here. And she just embraced me and the girls that were there. And then there were other people because they invited the community, but we had this intimate space. They created an intimate space for us. The way that I describe for me, how people respect and hold this reverence for churches. For me, libraries are like churches and should be respected and maintained and held to that. They're public. They're, for us, it's like Paulo Freire, right? It's the school of the people. That's how I see them, and they're beautiful to me. And one of the words also that comes up for me is a catalyst. For me, the library was a catalyst to all of my other spaces. It's almost like an opportunity to engage in a resource that is there for you, and it is kept for you. So I think that you feel, as a citizen, as a part of the community, you feel a level of respect from the library that you don't feel in other organizations, because it is truly there for the community, and they keep it for the community, and they care for it for the community. One thing that when I was in maybe 6th grade, I wrote about learning about trust because of the library. So my whole thing was, can you believe they trust me? I remember the librarian was like, well, it's as many as you can read, right? And I was like, well, I can't read 10 books at once. But I remember taking 3 books or a couple of CDs. And then I had my library card. And then I walked by and they would scan it, and it was mine. It was mine for 2 weeks, for a month. I can extend it. So the trust in you that you have this belonging, that's a big deal, especially coming from, Hart City, and you are one of the inner city kids or at risk. It's like you don't necessarily get trusted. I teach at the University of Massachusetts, and I say to my students, if we don't utilize the libraries, people are going to think that they don't need it anymore. That hurts my heart. But I love books. I literally love to hold the book, to smell the book, and to engage with it. So for me, a library still is an experience, and it's a museum, and it's a place where I don't have to hold myself back. I can interact with it. I got a job as a teen at the State Library. It was like one of my favorite jobs in the world. I learned how to bind the books, how to put the covers on it, how to stick the label. I had a desk, I had all my tools. Then I put the books on the cart. I was the proudest because I was like, wow, now I get to be in the insides of what this looks like. And then, of course, I used to ride the cart in the top where everybody's reading and everybody's studying. And guess what? I got exposed to what it feels like to be studying, to be connected. The library was like the thing for me. That was my safe space. I would take the city bus and I would just go to the library, and it was my home. I remember the teacher, he asked me, "How do you feel about life?" And I said, "It's exhausting. I'm worried, and I want to make sure that my family and I stay alive." And he was so impacted by my response because I was a teenager. And I remember graduating college and saying, "I can't believe that I did this. Like, I really can't believe that I actually have a bachelor's degree." My mom came to me, she's like, "Who do you want to thank for this? You know I loved you all my life, but who else, like, do you want to thank and show?" And I remember going back home and I wrote down the names of the teachers that I would go back to, which were like 3. There were not that many people that I felt had an impact. Fast forward, when I graduated with my PhD, I was like, I have to find him. And I did. And I was able to meet with him in a cafe. And I spent like 3 hours with him, talking to him. I couldn't believe it. And he mentioned to me that he would send me to the library. And then I said, "What did you think about me, in Hartford?" And he said, "I am so happy to see you now, and my spirit feels calm. I was so worried about you." And he reminded me of the 3 things I said to him that I thought about life. One thing that I didn't remember was that he said, "The day that I turn 50, I will breathe." I said that to him. And I said, "I don't remember saying that to you." He's like, "And I know now." He's like, "You're far from 50 still, but I know now what you were saying. You needed to find yourself, to find that security, to find that you could do it on your own. You needed to break from that fear, from that deficit perspective, and you made it." So if we really think about tying it back together, tying it back to when I was this little kid, that my aunt, I felt so secure with her. She's walking up the street, Sheldon Oats, up the street, turn the corner. I would play around in that corner where that little tree used to be. It was a little tree around, going up the stairs. I was so excited to walk into the building. And then I stayed there for a couple of hours. It was like a daycare for me, in a sense. I didn't know. I was having the best time of my life. So I don't know where I would be, but what I do know is I am here because of those connecting opportunities.
Thank you for listening to 250 Stories, a production of HPL Studios at Hartford Public Library. This episode was written and produced by Christopher T. Brown, sound by Sam Sigmund, edited by Faith Lucas, and with photography and graphic design support from Hartford Public Library's communications team and the Hartford History Center. For more information on this project, visit www.hplstudios.hplct.org. New episodes release every Tuesday, so subscribe to stay tuned.